The rain hammered the rooftops of Cheltenham with a fierce, punishing rhythm, a sound that felt less like weather and more like the inevitable consequence of a broken promise. In the driveway, Eleanor Whitmore, 52, sat in her silver Volvo, hands folded on the cold steering wheel. She had driven an hour, waited 63 minutes in the relentless downpour, all because her 20-year-old daughter, Olivia, had texted, "Mom, you should come. I wrote one about you." Eleanor had waited, sending 2 texts that faded into the digital silence, until she had run out of words entirely. Inside, Olivia, immersed in the superficial glow of her phone, had silenced the buzzes, choosing the ephemeral praise of social media over the tangible presence of devotion. She had deliberately allowed her mother to remain unseen, irrelevant, a waiting silhouette in the cold rain. At 9:21 p.m., Olivia finally stepped out, still scrolling, unaware until the sharp click of the car door and the slow, deliberate footsteps. Eleanor stood before her, soaked to the skin, trembling but devoid of anger, only a cold, consuming disappointment. This was not about lateness, it was about the callous rejection of love. The consequence, delivered barehanded over the cold brick wall, was the only way left to anchor the agonizing reality of her mother's invisible devotion into her adult consciousness. The rain was an uncompromising entity in Cheltenham that night, a relentless, unyielding beat against the rooftops. In the driveway of the ivy-clad terrace house, the silver Volvo sat cold and still under the weak glow of the porch light. Eleanor Whitmore, 52, sat inside, her hands folded with unnatural stillness on the steering wheel. She had been waiting for 63 minutes, a slow, chronological punishment delivered by her own loyalty. Olivia, her daughter, 20 years old, a university student and self-proclaimed independent adult, had promised to be outside at 7:30 p.m. Eleanor had driven an hour for the end-of-term poetry night at Gloucester Uni, not because she was suddenly interested in performance art, but because Olivia had texted 2 days earlier. "Mom, you should come. I wrote one about you." That simple line was a currency of hope Eleanor couldn't refuse. She came with a thermos of tea and a coat that smelled faintly of lavender and old wool. By 8:15 p.m., Eleanor had texted once, "I'm outside, love, waiting." By 8:42 p.m., she'd sent a second, softer plea, "I'll wait as long as you need." At 8:57 p.m., she sent nothing. She simply sat, letting the rain soak through her coat, letting the cold settle into her bones, letting the silence grow heavy enough to crush her. Inside the house, Olivia lay sprawled across her bed, phone propped against her pillow, scrolling through TikTok in lazy, addictive loops. She had read her poem, a quiet, self-reflective piece called The Woman Who Waits, which ironically had been about the abstract fear of being overlooked, not the actual woman sitting 100 feet away. She had silenced the 3 buzzing notifications, choosing the easy escape of her phone over the obligation of parental presence. She didn't know her mother was still out there. She didn't know the silence had been born of exhaustion, not indifference. And so, the rain kept falling, the car kept waiting, and Olivia kept scrolling. At 9:21 p.m., the front door clicked open. Olivia stepped out, hoodie pulled tight, headphones still in, scrolling through comments on her poem's Instagram post. She didn't look up, didn't check the driveway. She was still immersed in her own small, self-serving world until she heard the sound. The sharp click of a car door, and then slow, deliberate, heavy footsteps. She looked up. Her mother stood in the downpour, soaked to the skin. The elegant wool coat hung heavy and dark. Her silver-streaked dark hair clung to her face. Her gloves were gone. Her hands, usually so steady, so calm, trembled slightly at her sides. Eleanor didn't speak. She simply walked forward, one step at a time, until she stood directly in front of Olivia, inches away. Rain dripped from her chin, from her eyebrows, from the hem of her coat. "Mom, I didn't see your text. I was. Take off your hoodie." The words were quiet. So quiet they were almost swallowed by the storm. Olivia froze. "What? Take it off now." The tone wasn't angry, it was final. "I'm cold," she whispered, the protest futile. "I know." Eleanor reached out, not to strike, but to grasp the edge of the damp fabric. Slowly, deliberately, she pulled the hoodie off Olivia's head, letting it fall onto the wet grass. The gesture was symbolic, stripping away the shield of indifference and distraction. "Turn around." Olivia didn't move. "Turn around." The unyielding quality in her mother's voice forced compliance. Olivia turned. Eleanor took her wrist, not hard, but with an unyielding grip, and guided her to the low brick wall beside the garage. the wall Eleanor had painted white last summer, humming as she worked. "Bend over," Eleanor said. Olivia's legs shook. "Mom, please. Bend over." She did. Her jeans were already soaked through from the damp grass. Her bare legs were cold. The rain soaked her hair, her neck, her shoulders. She didn't cry. Not yet. Eleanor stood behind her. The only sounds were the drumming rain and the silence between heartbeats. Then came the first strike. It wasn't a slap. It was a paddle. Eleanor's open hand, calloused from years of professional nursing, gardening, and holding her daughter's hand through every minor crisis. It met Olivia's backside with a sharp, clean sound that cut through the storm like a bell. Slap. That's for the 63 minutes. Olivia flinched, biting her lip hard. Slap. That's for the silence. Her breath hitched violently. Slap. That's for the promise you broke. A tear mixed with rain slipped free. Slap. That's for the love you took for granted. Olivia's knees trembled. She pressed her forehead to the cold, wet brick. Slap. And that's for making your mother cry in the dark. The fifth strike landed like an undeniable confession. Eleanor stopped. The rain kept falling. Olivia didn't move. Her body shook, not just from the cold or the pain, but from the immense weight of the shame. She had spent 2 years telling herself she was an independent adult, yet here she was, bent over a wet brick wall, corrected like a child for a profound moral failure. This wasn't punishment for being late. This was punishment for choosing to be unseen, and worse, for making her mother feel invisible. Eleanor stepped back. Her own breath was ragged. Her hands, still open, still trembling, remained at her sides. She didn't touch Olivia. Didn't hug her. Didn't say "I love you." Because sometimes love doesn't need words. Sometimes it needs silence, pain, and rain. Minutes passed. The rain softened just a little. Eleanor's voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. "Say it." Olivia didn't move. "Say it," Eleanor repeated, the demand unyielding. Olivia swallowed, her throat raw. "I'm sorry." "Say it like you mean it. Say it like you understand what you took." Olivia closed her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered, the words cracking like ice. I didn't think you'd still care enough to wait." A pause. Then Eleanor gently turned her around. Olivia's face was streaked with rain and tears. Her eyes were red, her lips bitten and bleeding. Eleanor looked at her, truly looked for the first time in months. "You think I'm just the woman who drives you to uni?" she said softly, her voice heavy with the reality of her adult, committed life. "The one who makes tea. The one who texts too much. The one who doesn't understand." Olivia shook her head, but no words came. "I'm the woman who held you when you had your first nightmare at 20, realizing the world was a cold place. Who stayed up all night when you were sick with glandular fever last term. Who drove you to the hospital when you broke your wrist at 16. Who saved every poem you ever wrote, even the ones you threw away. I don't wait because I have to. I wait because I choose to. Because I made a promise to the universe the day you were born that I would be your anchor, even when you try to cut the rope." Olivia's breath broke completely. And then, for the first time since she was 10, she threw her arms around her mother. Not gently, not politely, but like she was drowning. And Eleanor held her tight, the soaked, cold fabric of their clothing mingling, the fierce heat of their love finally returning. They drove home in silence. Olivia didn't turn on the heater. She didn't reach for her phone. She just stared out the window, watching the street lights blur into golden streaks, each one a memory of her mother's invisible devotion. At home, Eleanor hung her coat on the hook by the door, the one with the little brass plaque Olivia had made when she was 12. Mom's coat, always dry inside. Olivia went to her room. She didn't turn on the light. She opened her laptop and typed one sentence. "I'm sorry I made you wait in the rain." She didn't send it. She saved it in a new folder called Things I Should Have Said. Later, there was a knock. Olivia didn't answer. The door opened slowly. Eleanor stood there holding a mug of chamomile tea, steaming the way she always made it, with a single drop of honey, never stirred. She placed it on Olivia's desk. No words, just the steam curling between them. Olivia didn't drink it immediately. She watched it, watched how the heat rose, watched how it curled, soft, quiet, patient like love. Not loud, not demanding, just there waiting, still. And when Olivia finally reached for the mug 2 hours later, long after the rain had stopped, her fingers were still cold. But the tea, she realized with a fresh wave of humbling clarity, was still warm. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. She felt known. And that, more than any apology, any punishment, any tear, was the weight of love she'd been too proud to carry until now.